The crunch of my boots on the Arctic snow had been my only soundtrack for 2 whole days. The ship that carried me this far north was long gone over the horizon. Nothing remained but endless white, my gear, and my absolute determination to find this place. "Final approach to target coordinates," I said, my voice muffled by the thick face mask. I adjusted the camera strapped to my chest rig, making sure it caught every step across this frozen, nameless island way up in the Barents Sea. Months of research went into this, digging through censored military files, comparing old Cold War maps, and sifting fact from wild conspiracy theories on the dark web. But Tommy Burton doesn't do things halfway. I'd bet my entire reputation on finding Station Boreas. Now, less than a kilometer away, I was about to be the first outsider to ever document the place. The wind dropped as I climbed a small ridge. Under the constant Arctic twilight, everything glowed with blue shadows. My GPS beeped softly. I'd arrived. I scanned the area, confused at first. Nothing, just more snow and empty silence. Then I saw it, a slight pattern in the snow, way too square to be natural. I pulled out my collapsible shovel and started digging. I cleared away decades of frozen buildup. First, I found a ventilation shaft. Right next to it, almost buried, was a heavy steel hatch with faded writing. U.S. Naval SIGINT Station Boreas, I read out loud, brushing frost off the letters. Jackpot. The hatch wouldn't budge. I used a heat pack around the seal and jammed my pry bar into the gap. With a sound like an ancient sigh, it finally let go. My headlamp lit up a steel ladder going down into total blackness. Cold air, tasting strangely metallic, rushed up. I secured my climbing rope and started climbing down. Every clank of my boots echoed down the shaft below. The first thing that hit me wasn't the cold, it was the sound. A low, steady hum shook the metal around me. Somehow, after all this time, the emergency power was still running. "This shouldn't be active," I whispered to my camera. "Records say this place was left empty back in '72. Nobody set foot here in 50 years. The main hallway stretched out before me, lit by dim, flickering emergency lights. Everything seemed frozen in time. Thin frost covered the walls, but no cave-ins, no water damage, just an abandoned space humming with impossible life. A ticking clock forgotten in an icebox. I made my way through cramped tunnels, checking my research notes against the reality. The layout matched my patchwork blueprints: barracks to the east, medical bay to the north, and dead ahead, the nerve center, the operations room. The ops room door stood slightly open. I pushed it wider. Inside sat rows of ancient machines, radar screens, radio consoles, and, most amazing of all, a line of reel-to-reel tape recorders. My breath caught. The spools on a few were slowly turning, silent as ghosts, as if they'd never stopped. "This is..." I paused, my professional calm cracking for a second. "Unprecedented." Labels marked each recorder. Daily logs, signal intercepts, personnel files. One machine had a simple label: Command R. Miller. My fingers, steady through blizzards and dangerous ice climbs, shook just a little as I checked it. The tape was intact, paused midway. One toggle switch would start it playing. I flipped it. Harsh static spat from the old speakers. Then a clear, commanding voice filled the cold room. "Station Boreas command log, February 12, 1971. Commander Robert Miller reporting. Day 47 of winter deployment. All systems operational. Primary mission continues, monitoring Soviet submarine movements in the Barents Sea quadrants per Operation Frostwatch protocols." The voice from 50 years ago echoed through the empty station. Overpowering triumph filled me in that moment. I had no idea I was listening to the start of a nightmare, theirs, and soon my own. I sat frozen as Commander Miller's calm voice filled the operations room. His steady, methodical tone was jarring, the sound of a man who had no clue what was coming. My eyes scanned the frost-covered consoles around me. They looked like they'd held watch one minute and been abandoned the next. What really happened to the crew stationed here? Miller's routine report ended. The tape hissed quietly. I pushed the eject button and sifted through the neatly labeled reels stacked in a nearby metal cabinet. My fingers found another marked Command R. Miller, February 17, 1971. I threaded it onto the machine. Station Boreas Command Log, February 17, 1971. Commander Robert Miller reporting, the voice announced, crisp and military. Winter deployment, day 52. All systems green. Minor issues logged in engineering report Delta 7. Crew morale is holding despite 7 days straight trapped inside by this blizzard. I pulled my heavy Arctic coat tighter. Even with thermal layers and the station's surprising emergency power holding out, the cold bit deep. Picturing months sealed under this ice and concrete sent a fresh shiver down my back. Miller continued, "Notable event today. Lead technician Price reported an anomalous signal detected at 0317 hours. Stand by for his direct brief." A pause, then a different voice, younger, sharper, excitement pushing against strict military discipline. "This is Senior Technician David Price, SIGINT Specialist. At 3:17 a.m., while monitoring Quadrant 4 of the Barents Deep Trench, I detected a signal unlike any known Soviet or NATO signature." Price spoke faster now. "Signal presents as low-frequency pulses, rhythmic, tracking source depth of approximately 9,000 feet. What's unusual is the location, Commander. Our databases show that trench quadrant as biologically sterile." I leaned closer, my camera forgotten. I thought Boreas had a simple Cold War mission, track Soviet subs. But this was something else. Price's voice dropped slightly, confidential. "Commander, preliminary analysis suggests organic properties. It isn't mechanical tech, nothing we know anyway. The pattern it pulses in is irregular but structured, almost like..." He hesitated. "Almost like a heartbeat, yet nothing like human or any known sea life. I've tasked Petty Officer Wynne with constant monitoring and frequency isolation." "Acknowledged, Technician Price," Miller responded. "Update me immediately with any changes. Command out." Static filled the gap before the next log entry. I hit pause. Leaning back in the creaky swivel chair, I tried to process it. A mysterious pulse from the deepest Arctic Ocean trench? Sounded like sci-fi. Yet the genuine confusion in Price's voice was undeniable. He'd found something he couldn't explain. My notebook came out. I jotted down thoughts. This changed everything. Not just a forgotten outpost, the sight of something genuinely unexplainable. My documentary suddenly became a lot more valuable. I pressed play again. Miller's voice returned. "Station Boreas Command Log, February 21st, 1971. Commander Robert Miller reporting. Winter deployment, day 56. A new tightness strained his tone. Technician Price continues monitoring the anomalous signal. Signal pattern remains uninterrupted and constant over the past 4 days. A click. Then Price was back. Update on anomalous signal designation Alpha 1. Signal maintains core pattern but shows subtle rhythmic shifts. acknowledges complexity. I've cross-referenced the frequency patterns against every known subsignature and marine life bioacoustic profile. No matches. Papers rustled faintly. Commander, initial mathematical analysis of the rhythm variations is complete. They aren't random. It suggests that the pattern could be... His voice faltered. "Stick to the facts, technician," Miller cut in flatly. "Yes, sir." Price took a breath. "Data suggests the signal may be intentional, structured, representative of a potential communication form." Silence stretched heavily on the tape. "That depth makes such a thing impossible, Price," Miller stated, final. "Maintain monitoring, continue signal isolation. Hourly reports on any change are mandatory." "Understood, Commander." The log ended. As the tape hissed, I felt it, a faint vibration in the metal floor beneath my boots. I pressed a hand to the console. There it was, a subtle pulse, almost imperceptible. For an icy, breath-held second, my mind jumped to a terrifying thought. The vibration matched the rhythm I'd just heard described on the tape. Slow, complex, patterned. I shook my head hard, forcing a laugh that died in the empty room. Just the ancient geothermal generators, I told myself, running on fumes for 50 years, powering dying lights. Nothing more. Listening to those old logs was just feeding my imagination. I checked my watch. Over an hour spent down here. I needed to film the rest of the station before bunking down. I ejected the tape and gently placed it in my equipment bag. I'd listen to the rest later. Standing up to grab my camera, the vibration paused, stopped dead. Then it started again. This time, the rhythm pulsed differently. A strange beat. I told myself it was the old machinery fighting the cold, and ignored the small voice whispering it felt like I had been noticed. That feeling of being watched, studied, didn't go away as I rewound the tape. I had to hear more, to understand what happened here. That rhythmic vibration I'd felt earlier pulsed just at the edge of my senses. If I focused on it, it vanished. When I looked away, it came back like a shadow only seen out of the corner of my eye. My fingers were stiff with cold as I shuffled through the remaining tapes. One label caught my eye. Price, D, Technical Analysis. Dated February 22nd, 1971. 5 days after they first heard the signal. I slid it into the machine and pressed play. The spools started turning. Senior Technician David Price, Technical Analysis of Anomalous Signal. His voice was sharp and clear, a man who took perfect notes and checked everything 3 times. I've isolated the pattern within the low-frequency range. It's remarkable. The signal holds a steady 1.8 Hz baseline, but introduces changes at mathematically significant intervals. I leaned in closer. Price's professional tone was slipping, replaced by something uneasy. Commander Miller insists this is natural, maybe geological or some unknown sea creature, but the complexity, it doesn't fit. The pattern, it's changing. The tape skipped forward. Price must have stopped and started again later. February 24th. The signal responded. His voice was an urgent whisper now. We sent a simple binary sequence on the same frequency. Just a test. Within 4 minutes, our sequence came back. Mirrored, but with additions. Variations that kept the math intact while adding new pieces. A chill ran through me deeper than the Arctic cold. It's intelligent. It's learning our patterns. And I believe it's trying to talk to us. The tape played Price's increasingly frantic analysis. Then another voice cut in. Commander Miller, ordering Price to stop unauthorized transmissions. Their argument, partly caught on tape, showed how bad things were getting inside the small crew. I grabbed another tape labeled Miller, station log, dated March 3rd. Miller sounded worn out. Third straight day of crew complaining about headaches and not sleeping. Dr. Winters blames the environment, recycled air, constant dark, the isolation. But that doesn't explain why they're all hearing the same thing. I froze at his next words. Even off-duty, away from the monitors, they report a constant humming. A rhythmic thrum they swear is coming from inside the walls. Price is the worst. He's convinced the signal has somehow gotten inside the station. Miller's voice dropped lower. God help me, I'm starting to hear it too. Just as I drift off that same pulsing pattern. Like a heartbeat, but wrong. Not human. I switched off the tape and stood up fast, needing to move. The operations room suddenly felt smaller, the darkness beyond the door thicker. I snatched my handheld light and stepped into the corridor, heading towards what the wall schematics called the barracks. My beam caught frost patterns on the walls, geometric, almost symmetrical shapes that couldn't be random. I touched one, feeling the icy crystals under my fingers. Had they always looked this organized? This deliberate? My breath fogged the air as I reached the barracks doorway. Inside, 6 bunks stood perfectly made, like they were waiting. Personal things were still there. A worn paperback, a chess game frozen mid-move, a framed photo of a woman standing in bright summer sun. That's when I heard it. A scraping sound. Slow, deliberate, coming from deep inside the station. Like something heavy being dragged across the floor. I held my breath, listening hard. The sound came again. A long, slow scrape, then silence, then another. Hello? My voice sounded weak, swallowed by the heavy quiet. Nothing. Just the distant hum of the station's power, or what I'd kept telling myself was the power. I backed out of the barracks, my heart pounding. The sound had come from the direction of the communications hub, a room I hadn't checked yet. Logic said it was just ice shifting, or old machinery settling, but Price's words echoed, "It's intelligent. It's learning." Back in operations, my hands shook as I grabbed another tape. Price. Personal notes. March 8th. His voice was almost gone, rough and full of fear. It's in the station now, not just the signal, IT, whatever makes it. I can feel it watching me. The others think I'm crazy, but they don't get what we've done. We didn't find it. We woke it. And now it's curious. I stopped the tape, suddenly aware of the silence pressing in. The humming had stopped. The constant background vibration I'd felt since arriving. Gone. The station held its breath. Then, from directly above the operations room ceiling, came 3 distinct, deliberate thumps. Like something testing the tiles, seeing how strong they were. I looked up at the frost-covered ceiling, my light beam shaking. The station wasn't abandoned because of budget cuts or the Cold War ending. They ran. I stood frozen, the realization hitting me as deep as the Arctic cold. They didn't just leave, they ran. They fled in absolute panic. The silence felt louder than any noise. Every breath I took plumed out, freezing instantly. My confidence, all my careful planning, my stupid idea that I was uncovering history instead of waking something up, it all crumbled like ash. I had to know what happened. What could scare trained Navy men into throwing themselves into the killing freeze of the Arctic? The answer was on those tapes. It was the only thing left. My hands shook as I searched the remaining reels. Most labels were boring. Routine logs, comms records, maintenance. One stood out. Command, Final week. The handwriting was messy, uneven, barely like Miller's neat script, almost scratched onto the label. Fumbling with cold fingers, I loaded the tape. Static hissed. Then Commander Miller's voice cut in. But not the strong commander voice from before. This was a broken man. March 9th, 11 at night. His voice was rough, strained. Price is gone. Slipped out during night watch. When we noticed, all that was left were tracks leading into the blizzard. Farnsworth and Chen went after him. Neither came back. A long pause. Only Miller's ragged breathing. Down to 4 of us. Peterson locked himself in the radio room. Won't open the door. Says he can hear it better in there. Says he's learning from it. My throat felt like sand. The tape rolled on. Miller's messages became more broken. Crew fighting. Fear spreading faster than the cold. The signal getting louder, more constant. March 11th. I hear it everywhere now. Miller's voice dropped to a terrified whisper. Not just the headphones, it's inside the walls, inside the pipes, a steady drumbeat. Price was right. It's not just sound, it's present, aware. A chill sliced through me, deeper than the freezing air, that constant hum in the station. I'd blamed it on backup generators, on the weak geothermal heat keeping the lights barely on. Background noise I ignored. But now, focusing in the silence, I heard it. Not the steady beat of machines. Uneven. A pulsing rhythm, almost like a strange heartbeat. The exact beat Miller described in the logs. The pattern Price lost his mind over. The signal wasn't trapped on that tape. It was here, right now, with me. The blow hit harder than any gust of wind. I stumbled back, knocking over my tripod. The camera crashed to the floor, its light jerking wildly over the ice-crusted walls. Horrified, I watched the frost move, shapes writhing in time with the pulse. I lunged for the camera, instinctive. Document everything. Even as the screaming part of my brain told me to bolt, the documentarian in me forced my hands to pick it up, pointed at the walls. Miller's final words whispered into the frozen room. March 12th. Oh God, Peterson's dead. Found him in the radio room. Not a mark on him. Just hollow, empty. His eyes. Miller's voice cracked. We're bugging out. Screw emergency procedures. Hernandez is prepping the snowcat. We make for the evac point. Pray someone hears the mayday. His voice dropped so low I had to lean forward. It knows we're leaving. The signal changed when we started packing. It's angry. I feel the pressure behind my eyes. The pulse is faster, angrier, and there's something else. Miller caught his breath sharply. A sound in the corridor, like something wet and heavy, being dragged on the floor. My blood froze. That scraping sound I heard before, and the 3 thumps above. It's right outside the door, Miller breathed, all trace of the commander gone, just raw animal fear. It's harsh static, then dead silence. End of tape. In that silence, every sense sharpened, painfully sharp. The hum wasn't background noise anymore. It wrapped around me completely. It pushed and pulled at my own heartbeat, trying to drag it into its terrible rhythm. Then the scraping sound came back. Not from the hall this time. Directly above me. Something heavy moved across the ceiling. Frost dust drifted down like grim snow. The sound paused, like it was listening or thinking. Holding the camera like a shield, I stood helpless. Fear poured over me, cold and final. I hadn't stumbled upon Station Boreas. It had drawn me here. It had called. The truth froze me solid. Standing there, camera gripped tight, I felt it sink into my bones like the Arctic chill. My breath hung in white clouds, pulsing with the station's endless hum. This was never a discovery. I wasn't the explorer here. I was the explored. The overhead lights flickered wildly, plunging the operations room into blackness before struggling back to a dim, sickly glow. In that darkness, the hum grew stronger, no longer just around me. It was inside me now, vibrating through my ribs, rattling my teeth. Miller's final tape kept playing, his voice a haunted whisper. God help us. It's not just the signal anymore. It's here, in the station. I can feel it thinking, processing, learning. My fingers shook as I reached for the stop button, but something held me back. Some awful need to witness this. The others are gone. I'm alone now, but I hear Miller's voice cracked, a sob shattering his military calm. I hear a sound outside the operations room, a pulling, dragging sound, like something wet and heavy being scraped across the floor. The exact sound now echoed from the hallway outside. Scrape, pause, scrape, pause. Not some echo from 50 years ago. A perfect, impossible replay. This is what took Peterson, Miller whispered. This is what hollowed him out. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. Closer now. The logical part of my brain, the part that planned every detail of this expedition, calculated survival odds, packed every backup battery, scrambled for excuses. Ice shifting, old metal settling, anything except what I knew was true. The lights flickered again, longer this time. In the blackness, Miller's final words reached me. It's outside the door now. I think it knows I'm here. I think it's always known. The tape clicked off as the lights returned. The empty reel spun silently for 3 agonizing seconds. Then the dragging started again. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. I should run. Every muscle screamed for it. But where? Back up the hatch into the killing cold? Deeper into the station's dark guts? And that traitorous part of me, the filmmaker, the witness, whispered I had to see, to record, to understand. My camera felt like lead in my hands. The battery showed full power, impossibly strong in this cold, like something wanted me to keep filming. Scrape. Pause. It was right outside now. The dragging stopped, replaced by a low, wet vibration that made the air shiver. The station's constant hum twisted together with this new sound, creating a sickening harmony that blurred my vision. I lifted my camera, lifelong instinct overpowering terror. My finger hovered over record as the door handle began turning, slow and deliberate. "What are you?" I whispered, my own voice alien to me. The door swung open, revealing the corridor beyond. In that instant, I understood why Miller's recording cut off, why nobody ever came back from Station Boreas, why I wouldn't either. The camera fell from my limp fingers as the hum swelled into a roar, not sound anymore, but a presence swallowing everything. As darkness took me, one thought snapped into focus. It hadn't just called me here. It had waited for me.